Hi, I'm Tom Collins, Executive Director of Clean Elections in Arizona, and I'm here with our Voter Education Director, Gina Roberts. So the first question, Gina, is, the polls close at 7. When are we going to first see results, and what are those ballots that are first released?
Sure. Okay. So, Tom, as you said, polls close at 7. The very important thing to consider here and to remember as a voter is that anybody in line at 7 p.m. will still get to vote. So let's say you get in line 6:59 p.m., polls close at 7. You're going to stay in line, don't leave, and you will still be allowed to vote, even if you have to wait another 10, 15 minutes. So it's very important to remember. So what happens after the last voter votes, and then we get to 8 p.m. on election night, we will actually see the first round of results coming through. Those will be publicly released. Now, again, keep in mind, Tom, all of these results that are coming, they are unofficial. But 8 p.m., what happens is we will see all of the early ballots that voters have returned and have been processed and verified and tabulated by the counties. That's that first batch of numbers that gets released to the public at 8 p.m. So there's often this myth that maybe, I'm not going to vote an early ballot because it may not count.
Right.
Those are actually the first ones that are counting. Our counties are actually tabulating right now. You can go online to your county elections website. You can click a link and you can actually see a live feed into the tabulator room right now. So ballots are being tabulated. They're being processed and verified. Come 8 p.m., we're going to see those first results of all of the early ballots that Arizona voters have submitted so far.
Okay, so that's 8 o'clock. And an important note, just to reiterate, you do need to get your ballot back. Even if you're not voting day of, your ballot needs to be received by that 7 p.m. deadline. So that's why, folks, if you still have a ballot, but you're thinking about mailing it, you're not going to want to mail that ballot. You're going to want to take that ballot to a drop box or to a vote center or polling location in your county.
So throughout election night, as the polls close, all the voters have voted. At this point, what all the poll workers are doing is they are taking the secured removable media devices from those tabulators that were at the polling places, and they're getting those over to Election Central. So they're getting them back to the counties. So throughout the night after 8 p.m., the counties will be uploading the results from each of the voting locations as they come in. So we'll continue to see updates to those unofficial election results as they come in throughout the night. And, this could happen all the way up until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. It just really depends on each county. It depends on how long it takes for those poll workers to wrap things up, to get those results back to the county. I mean, Tom, if we think about Coconino County here, right? They have a polling place that's down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So sometimes they have to actually get the ballots down there and get them back up by donkey or by helicopter. So after election night, when we've gotten all of the early ballots that have been processed up to date, and we've received the results from the election day voting locations, what comes next? It's going to be all of those early ballots that were dropped off to the county on election day, or maybe the day before and they hadn't been processed yet. So all of the ballots that were received by 7 p.m. on election day, those still need to go through the verification process. All early ballots are verified and to confirm the voter's identity through their signature. So that would be the signature on the early ballot affidavit form. So the counties verify every ballot before it gets tabulated. In addition to those early ballots that are dropped off on election day, we also have our conditional ballots. So you could be our conditional provisional ballots. So basically what happens is the counties are processing all of the provisional ballots and the early ballots that were dropped off on election day, and it takes time to review those. So for example, a provisional ballot is, let's say you go to the polling place and maybe you forgot your identification because you have to show ID when you vote in person. You can still vote what's called a conditional provisional, and it just means you have to follow up after election day with the county to provide sufficient ID in order for your ballot to count. So, Tom, after election day, Arizona law allows for 5 business days for voters to do 2 things after the election. One is if they voted that conditional provisional, they have up to 5 business days afterwards to show their acceptable identification to prove it was them who voted. Or let's say somebody had previously submitted an early ballot. And as I just mentioned, your ID is verified through your signature. Well, if the counties can't confirm that your signature matches the one on file, you as a voter, you do have time after the election, 5 business days, to contact the county and verify your signature. And I should say the county will actually reach out to you as the voter to let you know, hey, was this your signature? Did you vote? So what happens after the election in terms of ballot tabulation? We have the early ballots that hadn't been processed yet, and we have our provisional ballots that either need to be cured for a signature period, or they need to be looked at for confirming the voter's eligibility, and again, or additional ID. So things are still happening after election night for legitimate ballots that need to be counted.
The results we're going to see on election night and the days afterwards, those aren't official results. What do we mean when we say official results?
That's a great question. So oftentimes you may hear the media trying to call an election, which they do, and they're basically just doing math at that point, trying to determine, okay, how many registered voters were there, what's left, can I call this election, is it likely that this candidate won? Well, as election officials, everything that gets counted and tabulated, all of those results are considered unofficial until the County Board of Supervisors comes together in a public meeting and they officially adopt the canvas of results. So in order for that to happen, in addition to completing tabulation, the counties also have to do a lot of post-election day activities to confirm the accuracy and the integrity of the election. This includes logic and accuracy testing. This includes a hand count of random ballots. And so until the counties can come together and canvass, then everything prior to that is considered unofficial. Once all 15 counties have canvassed their election, those go to the Secretary of State's office, those county results, and the Secretary will aggregate those to produce the statewide results. And they will also have a public meeting to canvass the statewide results. So again, until canvassing occurs, everything is considered unofficial.
So when people say, oh, I remember in the old days, somehow we always knew the results on election night, seems like that might be a little bit of a myth.
That is definitely a myth. It has been this way for decades, where we have never had official final results on election night just because of all of these procedures that need to come in place after the election. One, that again, for those voters who legally have the opportunity to come in after the election to verify their ballot, again, whether that's carrying a signature, providing ID, and then also for all of those checks and balances that we have built into the system to confirm the accuracy and the integrity of the election. So our counties will not call these election results final until all of those security measures have been taken, until every ballot has been reviewed, verified, and tabulated, and until the county Board of Supervisors comes together in a public meeting and officially declares the results.
So I think that's really good information, Gina. And I think it's important for voters to know, as we come into Tuesday, number one, your ballot's got to be back by 7 p.m. on election day. And then over that night and the next several days and weeks, you're going to want to be keeping your eye on what officials are doing to confirm the accuracy, to make sure that every vote's counted, and to make sure that all of those checks and balances Gina has talked about take place, because that's how we ensure that Arizona continues to have a safe and secure election system that folks can rely on.
So it's important for voters to have realistic expectations of the tabulation process. And so, the counties are required to canvass that election within 20 days after election night. So they have up to 20 full days to complete all of those activities we just talked about. Then once the counties get done, then it goes to the Secretary's office. And so then they have to complete their process. So our Arizona law allows for this time. It accounts for all of those procedures, and it has been this way for quite a while. So Arizona, previously, the law was we would have an automatic recount that would be triggered if the margin between the votes was 1/10%. So that's fairly, a small number, but actually the number got even smaller now with the legislative session. They actually changed that law. So now it's an automatic recount if the difference between the candidates is 0.5%. So if we find ourselves in a position here where after the results have been canvassed and we see that the margins are there to trigger an automatic recount, that will add more time into the electoral process here until we know who officially won. So we could be, if there's a recount, we could potentially be tabulating in December.
Well, I think that's an important point because, like Gina just said, the legislature changed this law this year. So this will be the first election with this new law that could potentially trigger recounts in more elections than we've seen in the past. There's a lot of information out there on the internet right now about elections, and we want to make sure folks are going to the best possible sources.
I couldn't agree with you more that voters need to know where to go to get that official election information. We would love for voters to visit azcleanelections.gov. It is one of the most comprehensive websites that is available to voters to get official, accurate, nonpartisan information. We have everything that you need from the logistics of voting to how is my ballot counted. You can learn how the security measures that are in place to ensure that the vote that you cast on your ballot is going to the correct candidate. You can get on those links to watch the live tabulation. You can get access to the Canvas documents when it becomes official. So if you haven't voted yet and you still need to vote, you can visit our website and you can identify where you can go vote in person. ID is required. If you still have your early ballot, as Tom mentioned earlier, don't mail it. At this point, we need to have you drop it off in person because it needs to be received by 7 p.m. on election day, and make sure you sign it. But information on where to go vote, where to drop off all those ballots, it's all available at azcleanelections.gov.